Hey, welcome back. How are you doing? So, today I am very honored to be joined by a researcher, a professor, a businessman, and our partner. Yes, I'm speaking about Ger Koole, co founder of CCmath, and in this conversation, we'll be covering all the mathematics behind workforce management. We'll be speaking about multiple angles on how mathematics are important for workforce management, but also we are going to touch, since Ger is a professor, everything about learning and how important learning is for workforce management. Let's go. Ger, welcome to our show. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
So how are you doing, first of all?
I'm doing fine. Just back from holidays. Working again this week, both at university and here today at CCmath. And it's also nice to be back.
Okay, so let me start with one of the hardest questions that we normally ask in the beginning, which is we had loads of definitions about what workforce management is, but I would love to have your take on, in one phrase, how would you describe what does it mean to you?
Well, in the first place, what we call workforce management, I think I would call it workforce planning because management entails more than what we do, but it's about matching demand and supply. It's about matching number of calls or other contacts coming in and having the right number of the right people at the right time to answer calls within service level without overstaffing, without spending too much. I think that would be the one phrase definition.
And you mentioned it in a way that one of the things I normally say is that when we look at different industries, these principles exist. They exist in logistics, they exist in different types of factories.
Sure.
And the principles by concept are the same. Then technicalities are different because we are talking about different types of work. But I like the way you summarize it because it's actually makes it fit like to almost any of these different industries.
Yes, but there are also differences, and the biggest difference is the the speed at which things in call centers and contact centers happen. Even in emergency care, the time it takes for an ambulance to go to an accident is perhaps 50 minutes. The time to drive back to the hospital is another 50 minutes. So people have time to prepare. And in call centers, you have to respond, often within 20 seconds. So the speed at which things happen and also the availability of technology to optimize all the WFM process, I think that's very special to call centers. And that's also what, from a technical side, attracts me to call centers. Because of this speed, you need to, there is the opportunity and also the need to have, advanced mathematical methodologies to make sure that things go as they should go.
And I think that's very interesting. And specifically on the workforce management, I think speed is at the answers many times. So you have been here for quite some time working alongside this industry as it moved, and I think moved quite big because we had breakouts from support being done just on phones. Over time, we got email, chat, different cloud solutions that just disrupted at different speeds. To be honest, so how would you rate the maturity of the WFM industry today?
Ooh, on a scale from 0 to 10, I don't know, perhaps 7 or 8. If you compare call center workforce management with other industries, for example, healthcare, then they are rated much lower. So I think the use of technology in call centers is much more advanced than other industry. But on the other hand, there are still many possibilities. And when I look at a lot of the tooling that is available for workforce management, I see the same tools as when I started in call center 20 years ago. So there's a lot of legacy software, and of course, certain steps were made. But I think, and of course, that's also what we try to achieve with CCmath. I think we can really make a leap forward. And there are many opportunities to go from this 7 or 8 to do it even better.
Do you think that the expansion in order to improve this maturity, how much is it related with technology and how much is it related eventually with actually the development of the professionals and the function itself?
Well, I think it both. Every new solution needs to be accepted, and you need people who believe in new technology and want to adapt it. So that is in every change that plays a major role. On the other hand, I think, of course, you need good professionals and you need good tooling, but I don't think that tooling will replace professionals. It's like they cooperate. It's a tool that makes the skill set of the professional stronger. But I do think to a large extent, a lot of the knowledge that is still required and a lot of the work that is done in Excel by planners can be replaced by smart tooling. And that means that the planners can focus on other things. I mean, a forecaster spending days and days manipulating Excel sheets should actually talk to people and try to talk to the marketing and make sure he or she has all the information about campaigns, and then spend way less time on some appropriate forecasting tool.
And there is a lot of cleaning up reconciliation,
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
mismatch of information back and forward.
Exactly. And there are so many errors made and people reinventing the wheel. That's not
Mhm.
necessary. Yeah,
So let's take that and divert more to the scientific side of this, and I think you will enjoy that since you are a professor as well
yeah, yeah.
in this field. So there is a lot of mathematics behind what we do, but I wanted to start by you co-founded CCmath, so I
Yes.
wanted to know what kind of sparked the creation of CCmath.
Actually, back in 96, I started here in Amsterdam as a professor at university here, the Vrije Universiteit. And then we did a student project in a call center. So I first saw a call center from the inside, got acquainted a bit with the challenges over there, found these very interesting. And over time, uh, also together with my co-founder Auke Pot, I did academic research on it. And of course, we started publishing scientific papers. But I also wanted to make the step towards industry. And actually, we went talking to 1 or 2 companies that are represented here in the Netherlands and said, hey, we have solutions and I think you might be able to profit from that. Are you interested in that? Can we help you with that? Can we? And they said, well, that's all very interesting, but we have good tooling and perhaps from some consulting like assignments, it might be helpful. But they basically said no. And then we thought, well, if they, why not try to do it ourselves? Because we believe in our solutions, and that's why we founded CCmath in 2005. Together with Auke Pot, who is still working at CCmath, and together we started CCmath.
And I think I don't know if you agree or not, but probably the
Yeah.
challenges that you guys set up to solve in the beginning they changed. So
Well,
I
yeah,
think multiple achievements over time. So, and I think you will agree that the kind of the mathematics behind workforce management they are present. Not most people just think it's only forecasting, but it's way more than that.
yeah.
I wanted to kind of ask, like, what are kind of the core principles that almost everyone in WFM uses, but they don't even know they actually using any kind of like insight that you could share? Because I think
Yeah.
this is very powerful when people realize that they use it, but they don't even know they do.
Well, one of the things is we all use scheduling engines. We all have a tool a planning tool, but the technology behind that is pretty advanced, and there are all kinds of optimization methods behind that working for you. Yeah, so that is one of the things. But what I find fascinating about call centers is the role that variability plays. Yes, and the fact that because of that variability that we can predict to a certain extent, but to a certain extent is unpredictable, and we have to deal with that. And so we need flexibility to counter that. So this whole interplay between variability and flexibility, and I mean everybody is using that, but quantifying that, getting really understanding that, that is, I think, one of the most interesting challenges. But if you look at CCmath in our own scheduling tool, a lot of our, well, a lot of work and a lot of our mathematics goes into making new scheduling engines for different types of situations. That is also a really big part of our, of at least the work on the algorithms that we.
Just to go back on the kind of like CCmath, like you said, you founded CCmath in 2005.
Yeah.
So the industry evolved quite some time. What was for you, the scariest moment, or the moment that you thought that was kind of a huge milestone broken?
I mean, there were never really scary moments that we ever were at the edge of going bankrupt or something like that. Of course, over time you learn, and we learned in many ways, and also the company changed in many ways. And when you start with a certain business plan, and of course you need to have a business plan to start working with, but it has been changing over time, and sometimes you take a decision in 5 minutes that has huge consequences in huge amounts of work. For example, at some point in the beginning, we only made algorithms, and then we had partners who made the user interface and the databases behind it and everything. And all we had was a scheduling algorithm or Erlang algorithm or forecasting algorithm. And then we said, we don't want to depend on these partners anymore. We want to make our own user interface. But that is a lot of work. Yes, and we went through different versions of that, but that decision was very quickly made, and it meant a lot of work. Something else is we have online trainings, and at some point, one of our customers for who we did face-to-face trainings came to us and said, yeah, we want you to train all our planners, but they're all around the world, and we don't want them to fly them to Amsterdam once a year for a whole week, to have them out of the process and spend a lot of money on that. So can you make online trainings? And then we said, yeah, sure. But the amount of work that it takes to make online trainings for all types of training, that's a huge amount of work. Yeah, so we spent a lot of time on what we now call our WFM Academy.
It's the underestimating, not knowing the full scope.
And so I mean that's the opportunism of a starting company. You say yes, let's do it, and I think that's great. We do have an enthusiastic team, and we still have a bit this startup feeling in our company mentality. On the other hand, we're growing. We're a serious business by now, having a large team. So we at the same time we need to work in a structured way, guaranteeing service levels and everything that goes with it. And I do think so. In that sense, every phase has its challenges. And I'm still involved in the mathematics and the algorithms, but I also like this. There are no two similar days, and the challenges change over time. So, and I like that very much.
And it's clear. Like we had a few interactions with as a partner. I think that mentality. It's super cool to feel. So back to the academic space. So as a professor, and now a personal opinion. So I struggle a lot throughout my career to find professionals within the WFM space with the right background working either on there are some backgrounds that are more commonly seen, but normally what we see is people that are super well-rounded. They have the simple basic concepts about how to use Excel. They either trust blindly the softwares they use and they don't understand necessarily what's behind it, but like they learned how to do it, so the knowledge is on the job. And I think knowledge is key sometimes for this space to grow. So and because everything is learned on the job, I think there is some kind of gap here. Do you think there is enough academic learning programs or courses that exist today for this, or how big is the gap that needs to be shortened to increase this skill set?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a gap. Yes, when you talk to kids at high school, someone to become a doctor, others want to become a lawyer, and a third wants to become an accountant. But nobody says, I want to become a call center planner, and I go to school for that. Yeah? So everybody I talk to in call centers has very different backgrounds. Yes, but I do think they are very good professionals. And I think for a company like CCmath, it is essential that we have WFM professionals and we have mathematicians. But it's very hard to find people who have both these skills. And what you do see nowadays is slowly there are data scientists working into the call center area, and they do have the mathematical and AI background to really understand the underlying principles. Although they often lack the understanding of call centers. You really have to understand call centers. You really need call center understanding and both mathematical understanding. And it's very rare to see them both. Of course, that is one of the reasons why there's room for trainings like we do to educate people, to train people. On the other hand, and I do think we try to, in our software, if you have smart software, and nowadays with AI, software really gets smarter and smarter. To a certain extent, it replaces the knowledge, but I do think it's very important to have definitely, perhaps not at the day-to-day planning level, but definitely at the more consulting type functions, to have people with a solid mathematical or statistical academic background combined with a number of years experience in call centers. But because you really, and that is the big pitfall of the data scientists that work in call centers. They all know about forecasting, but forecasting in call centers is quite specific, and scheduling even more so. So that is, and we also see companies that are with a strong data science background, but who are struggling really with the call center side of it and how call centers function.
Actually, it's a very interesting point. I agree with you that there is a lot of data scientists coming into the space more and more, which I think it's good because creates that opportunity to grow and recognize the function, which I think it's great. I think there is also missing that gap on. There is a lot of planning roles for logistics. Like there is actually some academic backgrounds on which, again, we spoke about this in the beginning. The concept wise it's the same, so maybe it's just within those courses add some specifics on this industry, on the different types of it doesn't need to be a full program, but I think could be interesting to prepare better professionals. What do you think?
Well, for example, I try to teach them at the university a couple of courses on what are the challenges in call centers. Yes, but we need much more. And I really think within data science, they often talk about T-shaped professionals. Yes, so that means you know a lot about one specific methodology, but you have a wide experience with other methodologies. Yes, that if you only know how to use a hammer and you give somebody a screw, then you're doing the wrong thing. So you also need to know how to handle a screwdriver. Yes, but nowadays they often talk about pie-shaped professionals. Yes, and the second pillar is, instead of a T, it is two vertical lines. And the second one is knowledge about some application area. And I think if you go see a LinkedIn post, many people agree on that. It's largely underestimated, the necessity of having knowledge about the application area. And so that is really crucial also for data scientists. And that is one of the reasons that I think within CCmath, we have a balance between people with a scientific background, developers for making software, but also WFM professionals. I learned a lot from them, really from the interactions with the people here at CCmath.
I like that you brought up the T-shaped and the P-shaped kind of because I actually read an article about that recently. And I think those layers of specialization that you need of expertise, they are critical to develop, not only specific to WFM, but I think to any professional, because that's what will make you different. That's what will increase your skill set and enlarge the way you can interact with the different stakeholders.
And logistics is really different from healthcare, even though they use Erlang or similar things. And that is again really different from call centers. So don't think that if you know something about call centers or healthcare that you also know about call centers.
Yeah, that's a misconception that I see very commonly, actually. So to elaborate a bit more, so we were speaking about the cycle, and now let's jump to focus a bit on forecasting.
Sure.
We mentioned before about the math behind it, kind of like some of the how important it is. We even spoke about that cycle of aligning, cleaning data, etc., etc. The question to have a closed question is about how critical is a good forecast in the workforce management cycle.
I think if your forecast is better, that definitely helps. I mean, if your forecast is wrong, you always need to adapt in your schedule and you always need real time management to adapt for the errors in your forecast. Yeah, so a better forecast always saves money and always saves a lot of work
Mhm.
to rework during the day. However, there is a limit to the precision you can achieve with your forecast. So there is always, if you want to achieve a stable service level, there is always the need for real time management, and of course, a lot of other things happen than just errors in your forecast. And there are always unforeseen things, people things that you cannot predict. There are always people ill. There are systems going down, etc., etc. So there's a limit to the
Mhm.
precision of your forecast.
Yeah, one of the things I see, I don't know if this is common to you as well, is that I had different conversations with some of them with decision makers that they struggle to what's the most critical piece is like, do I invest in a very good software forecasting either team software that gives me as much as accurate possible tailored to my actual use case, or do I keep it to a level that is I'm comfortable with, but then I invest in the next step, which is translating that into value to the organization and planning scenarios and more strategic planning. And I think this is a very hard one to pull because there are always benefits and pros and cons on both sides. But I personally, I'm a fan of finding the balance between both.
Sure, sure.
Uh, I think the struggle is, I'm not sure if you agree, is that it's not very common because normally everyone picks one side and goes all in one, and then they try to all go all in on the other, so they keep running
Yeah,
against the mouse. What kind of advices would you give from someone that probably has on that consulting role seen loads of different setups? What are the normal
yeah.
common mistakes and advices you give?
Well, let me start by saying that it's really a hard question, and of course, a chain is strong as its weakest chain. So, what I do think, we talk to a lot of organizations who talk about improving their forecast, and I think
Mhm.
it's not just about the accuracy; it is also about reliability, not making errors, these type of things. Something else is that I hardly hear people talking about the accuracy of scheduling software. And a tool is often used as Erlang C, also in many scheduling tools. Simply, it consistently it gives you the wrong solution. Yes, and
Mhm.
so thinking about it, starting to evaluate it. And when you choose a scheduling tool, not saying, does it support just ticking all the tick boxes, but also looking at the quality of it and just comparing some tooling and see which one fits your needs best and it
Mhm.
really gives you the best service level, that is hardly done. Yes, and it's a huge investment. People often do that for multiple years, so spending a bit more time and thinking about the quality of the tooling is something that is worth investing in.
Mhm.
And it also has to do with the maturity of your planning process. It's also about asking the right questions.
Yeah,
Yes, and I think we really need to make as an industry together. Yes, and make
I
steps
agree.
into that.
And I think one thing I see a lot is that people investing a lot on trying to forecast the demand. They really involve, but then I don't know for whatever reason there is always a level of assumptions that people take for granted. So for instance, there are, oh, I'm going to forecast demand, but then every single other assumption is an average that I saw somewhere on the report, and
Yeah,
they forget that actually there are models that can help you even predict what's the best, like based on either um, different curves about intraday patterns, or even especially
Exactly.
like you can forecast not only your demand, but you can forecast almost as every single variable, and have models for every single variable. And I think that's one of the common mistakes I see, is that people use it for one thing and then everything else is assumptions on top, and
Yeah.
then they complain the forecast, which is the most advanced thing they have. So that's one of the ones I see a lot, and that touches on something we spoke even before we start speaking, which is there's a lot of focus on the forecast accuracy.
Yeah.
We did a good forecast on the demand side, but then all the other piece about scheduling and for accuracy of the schedule, accuracy of the plan, that's where those assumptions have a saying, because people are probably not paying the same level of respect and attention as they did on the forecast. What's your take on this one?
No, I agree on that. And it's actually something we do scientific work on. So at the university, so what we try to do is we try to quantify the impact of the variability of the agent heterogeneity. Of course, every day you have a different agent pool. So that means that your handling times will be different from day to day, especially when you have a new group, a fresh training class entering the call center. These type of things have, of course, consequence on your handling time. So, and it's interesting to know. So, what are the consequences on the quality of your schedule? Yes, and these type of things, we are looking into that, and then trying to quantify. Okay, if we dive deeper into the composition of the agent pool, and we use that to predict the handling times, and we use that to do the right staffing levels, does that really increase the accuracy of the service level estimations, and with that the quality of the schedule? So these are some of the things we dive into, and we want to get more clarity about.
And I think that's super important on the development of the professionals and
Yeah.
then the function as well. But you started to touch on this, so more on the academic level. And I know you have been teaching and developing people
Yeah.
as a professor for over 25 years from my research. I hope I'm not wrong.
No, you're right.
What do you love the most about teaching and developing other people?
Well, it's always nice, and the same holds for call centers, to work with. Of course, by now I'm a bit older, but to work with young people and to work together to achieve a common goal. So it's nice to work as a team, both at the university where you have a research group around you, and young people trying to get their masters or their PhD, smart, motivated people. The same holds here within CCmath, or the same holds for the trainings that we give. Of course, I do not give them alone. Many years ago, I started doing this training, but by now we have a team doing that. But that motivates me. On the other hand, what really motivates me is that I'm still very much curious about what's underlying. And when we find things, and I really like to discover new things within call centers, translate them into nice scientific solutions. And on the way, for example, when we try to quantify, come up with simple formulas to quantify the level of accuracy you can achieve in your forecast. Yes, these were really great moments when you find things, when you discover something. So that is still this scientific curiosity that drives me. And on the other hand, I do say, of course, call centers are not always the best environments for people to work in. But what we do try in our software, and I really think that's important, to make also schedules better, do not require more flexibility from the agents than required. So I do try within CCmath to make life of call center agents as good as possible, to also think about,
The employee side and the human side.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
super important.
Yeah,
I think it's good because with a focus on mathematics and the scientific side of the numbers, it's very easy to disregard that piece. And I think
Yeah.
having that in the front line is very important.
Yeah, you have to think also about the human side of it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I have to just to go back on something you said before. So you remind me. So my grandfather used to say when I was younger, it's a saying in Portuguese. I don't think it translates in English the same way, but I will try my best. Which is that knowledge does not take too much space. Meaning that no matter how much you can research, how much you can learn, knowledge is going to be knowledge. So you don't get like heavier because you have more knowledge. So knowledge is always something good to have, and that's kind of the way you described it on that instinct of wanting to know more why things happen. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's super inspiring. And that, touching on inspiring, who inspired you the most and why?
Oh, yeah. Well, um, perhaps two people. Of course, when I was studying in Leiden, which is a small university town in the Netherlands, the oldest university of the Netherlands, um, I had a PhD advisor, and he was specialized in queuing systems. So the whole theory behind the Erlang formulas and in how to control queues, all at a very theoretical level. But he learned me to do research and really to stare at a white piece of paper for a day before you come up with something sensible. Yes, and that is really how making new algorithms, inventing mathematics works. Yeah? And so that was the theoretical side. And then I came here in Amsterdam, I got appointed here. And then there was a part-time professor who was at the same time working at a bank who had this call center, which was the first call center I saw from the inside. And he showed me the attitude of how you apply mathematics in practice and how to convince people and what the value is of applied science. And that inspired me a lot. And so in the first years here at the university, I learned a lot from him. And I think that also sparked uh, us wanting to start a company, because what really liked, I mean, doing research and writing academic papers is one thing, but I mean, the real proof that you did something useful is when people are so much interested that they start using your tooling, that they're willing to pay for it. So that is, in a way, the ultimate proof that that your inventions, your mathematics, are doing something useful.
It's kind of like the proof that works. That in many other functions, the outcome of what you are trying to produce is visual, is something material,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
many times when it's something more theoretical, it's hard to grasp
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly what it is. So, final question for you
Sure.
is your role, and I think you love. I would love to ask, what role would you love to see mathematics playing in the WFM industry in the future? Even though that there is a huge part of it that is around mathematics, but even sometimes not being recognized. But what role do you think that mathematics can play
Well,
in the future?
mathematics sometimes is called the language of science. So mathematics,
Mhm.
without us realizing, is underlying everything. People talk about science a lot, and definitely the last couple of years because of COVID and all kinds of discovery. Underlying that is it's all about statistics. It's all about fluctuations. It's the same science as forecasting. So I do think and the same holds for scheduling. So without us realizing it, perhaps mathematics is underlying so many things. I think that we talked about should we about educating planners on the one hand and software becoming smarter on the other hand. So I really would like to make software smarter, make it easier to use, make it more automated, make it more visual for the user, what the different options are, how to use the software to really make, in using artificial intelligence, to make our software smarter in the sense that it's even easier to use and that people can even more focus on communication. It's like when you're sitting in your car, you feel one with your car. Yes, I have this feeling when I drive a long way. You're really feeling connected, and that feeling, that's the feeling you should also have with software. And with some nice software tools, you have that. And I would like that as well for our WFM
That's
software.
that's a very interesting way to put things. Jers, thank you so much for the time today. Love
Thank you.
to get your thoughts and more in depth about workforce management on the lens of a professor and someone that is fighting to get the knowledge out there. And I think for someone personally that I've been saying that we need more and more people with this knowledge, and getting through learning is such the critical part of workforce management that I don't think we have enough. So was for me, it was really inspiring to speak with you, and to have here you representing CCmath as well as our key partner for with WFM. Thank you so much for
Thank
the
you.
time.
Really nice
Uh,
doing it.
so for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Thank you, and follow both us and CCmath through our website. We'll leave the links below. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for listening to WFM. This podcast is made and produced by André Leitão, Bilge Hentelman, Doug Carstensen, Gonçalo Gomes, and Kim Paz. If you like this show, don't forget to share it with your friends and colleagues. Visit our website, wefm.com, to find more exclusive interviews and WFM content. See you next time. All rights reserved.